Well, hello, football fans. Welcome to ProLine. It's week 6 of the college football season. I'm John Cranton, joined by Jeff Sod and Sean Hess. A couple Las Vegas handicappers. We're going to take a look at some college football games. Really, the big three this weekend: Michigan State, Michigan, Bama, A&M, and USC, Notre Dame. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about some line movement that we noticed here in Las Vegas. Line movement happens all the time. Sometimes it does mean that there's inside information, or somebody has a good take on a game, or they made a bad line. And other times it's just the public getting fired up. So, Sean, what are some of the line movements that you saw that stood out this past weekend, starting with that NFL game? Well, Colts-Texans was all over the board.
I don't know how many shows we've done this year, but we brought up this line movement thing before. In fact, we put out a game last week. I'm sure Jeff remembers it. It was Oklahoma State and West Virginia. We talked about the movement on that, how we thought the line was really high. And Oklahoma State wins the game straight up. And then in the NFL, 10 days ago with the Thursday thing, with Indianapolis and Houston, and just because Andrew Luck was out and the original line came, Indianapolis won. Then they announced that Luck was out, and the line just went the other way. And I believe, Jeff, that Houston closed at about a 5-point favorite, and a guy named Matt Hasselbeck, who's as old as I am or close to it, came out of the hospital with the flu and played spectacular football in both halves, especially the first half. And they win the game 27-20. It was never a doubt about it. Houston came back and tied it up late, but still getting the 5 points was always secure. There was never a time they weren't covering the game, and then they win it straight up 27-20, and a real gutty performance by Matt Hasselbeck. I was really happy to see that. Then the same thing last week we talked about. How about Charlie Strong? I mean, a 17-point underdog in a great rivalry game. We had talked before about the fact that the luster on that game has kind of come off in recent years because neither team has been so great, especially Texas. They've had their problems, especially Charlie Strong. But Charlie Strong probably saved his job for at least the next 3 years. And I know this is a show that's going on TV, so I can't say all the nice stuff I'd like to, but let's just say that Charlie can pretty much do what he wants to do for the next week in Austin.
Well, he was off a blowout loss.
But yeah, well, a huge loss.
Well, how could you back them after that?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, 17 points is every bit. The 17 points is really designed to keep you from playing the game. They didn't want anybody to bet Oklahoma is what they did. Well, as it turns out, and I saw the whole game, and pretty much wire to wire, Jeff. I mean, Texas controlled the tempo of the game. They played solid football. 2 quarterbacks are in there. Strong did a great job, great game preparation. I think they just ambushed Oklahoma. I didn't think Oklahoma ever saw this coming.
Yeah, this is the trouble with laying a lot of points in a rivalry game. You just never know when the other team is just going to wake up and play great and win the game. For that Colts-Texans game, I was going to take the Colts no matter what the line was because the Texans got destroyed the week before and they had a short week. I didn't think you could improve that much in 3 days. But as you said, what happened was Luck was out, Hasselbeck was reportedly sick, and that's why the line moved there.
In the hospital.
Yeah, in the hospital. Yeah. So that obviously that's why the line moved there. But those are the things you have to watch for. But it's
6 point move. Yeah, in the
6 point move. But either way, I had the Colts, and also Oklahoma State. That was my underdog game of the year. We talked about last week on the show. We couldn't figure out how Oklahoma State could be that big of a favorite on the road against West Virginia, which had played a very easy schedule and then lost to Oklahoma. So everything pretty much came together as we thought would be this past weekend.
How about the University of Tennessee and Georgia? Well, you're up 21.
Talk about saving jobs.
I thought it was a loser. Yeah, you're up 21 and lose the game straight up. Wow, and we talked about that letdown possibility with Georgia after the game, the previous game that they had played. Where could they bounce back from that?
Yeah, but usually you have a letdown after a big win, not after a loss.
Not good.
Yeah, that Georgia defense has talent too, but that's 2 straight stinkers. I'm having to reevaluate that.
Yep.
The first game we're going to look at is this Michigan State-Michigan game, and that's also where line movement comes into play because the early money here has actually been even split on Michigan on the 2 teams. But the thing is, Michigan went from a 6.5-point favorite to 7.5. So, Sean, does that mean it's equal action money, but the sharps are coming in big time on one team?
Well, first of all, this game is either going to determine whether I should get out of this business or I'm the greatest genius since Jeff Sad got in the business, kind of thing. It's a home game for Michigan. It's a Big Ten, obviously, and they're in the Eastern Division. And Michigan, the home team, number 12 in the rankings against Michigan State, number 7, right? The higher team is getting points here. I make numbers on these key matchup games a week before, And I made the number on this game tops Michigan, maybe 2.5, and it wouldn't have surprised me it had even come pick 'em, maybe Michigan won. Everybody knows about Michigan State. They haven't covered a game, but they're 6-0 straight up and all that. This game will go at 3:30 Saturday afternoon. That's Eastern Standard Time. It's an ESPN game. And this line, like I said, really surprised me. I thought Michigan minus 2.5 tops. You can throw out all. This is a game, in my opinion, you can throw all the stats out. And Michigan State's won 6 of the last 7, all that, because of Harbaugh. He is the big difference. In fact, last year, Michigan State, I can't remember what the number was, but they beat this team 35-11, pretty soundly. Okay. Harbaugh's the coach. Michigan State, as I said, 6-0 straight up, but 0-6 against the bookie. They haven't covered a game, which is why this line is probably starting out high, but I thought it would come down. But it hasn't. It's gone up to 7.5 with Michigan. Here's Michigan State. They've been favored by 16.5, by 4, by 24.5, by 26.5, by 21.5, and by 13.5. That's an average line of 17-point favorite in all their games, and now they're getting 7.5 points. I can't make any sense out of that. Average margin of victory for them is 10 points a game, so they don't, they're not losing anything. Here's Michigan. This is a big, 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 big statement game with Harbaugh as the coach. I think it's homecoming, is it not? Jeff, is this a homecoming game for them?
I'm not sure.
I think it's home. I don't know that it matters that much, but it's senior day and all that kind of stuff. I remember in college, homecoming was a big deal.
No, Michigan just had the homecoming.
Oh, they just had it.
Northwestern,
Okay, so it's not.
They shut them out.
All right. They've consistently lost to Michigan State, as we mentioned. Michigan did beat Michigan State 12-10 as a home favorite and 9.5. That was back in 2012. Some simple numbers here. Michigan 5-1 straight up. They're on a 5-0 run since they lost that Utah game. They've covered 4 out of 6 games, so they're very good against the bookie. 5-game win streak, but they also have been big favorites in the last 5. How about lines of 14.5, minus 32.5, minus 6.5, minus 14.5, minus 9.5? Both teams stepping way up in class. That's why the point spread difference is so high here. Michigan has a bye next week, so this is kind of neat for them. And then they travel to Minnesota. No big deal about that. Their next big test will be a season-ending home game to Ohio State. That game, actually, I think, Jeff, a game of the year, when they first opened up, I think they were getting like 14.5, and I think it's 4.5.
4.5 now.
Big, big difference. Okay, here's a big problem for Michigan State. They die in the second half. This team been outscored in the second half 73-50 in the second half of these ball games. For some reason, they just can't sustain these big leads, and that's why they don't cover games. They get backdoored a lot. So, and the Michigan State plays Indiana at home next week. Not a big deal, but then they travel to Ohio State. They got that on the road, too, and that's on November the 21st. So this is not an easy road for Michigan State. So where's the edge? Where's the edge in this game? In my opinion, you have to go to the quarterback position, and it's not even close. I think that Michigan senior quarterback, and I can't think of his name.
Jake Rudock.
No, the Michigan State. That's Michigan.
Connor Cook.
Yeah, Connor
Senior.
Cook. Senior, he's a stud passer. He's been around for, 2 or 3 years now. He always has great passing numbers. I think he's 13-2 on his touchdown to interception kind of thing. The other guy's not bad, 5-6. I mean, that's not great. But I think the edge is clearly at the leadership role, and Michigan State has a running back. They can run the football. I cannot say no to 7.5 points. This is probably, like I said, I'm either the smartest handicapper ever in the whole world, because I think this line is way out of line, or I'm the dumbest handicapper that ever came around. But I think Michigan State plus 7.5 is a gift. They have a good chance to win this game straight up.
Well, we'll get the answer
But I
to
see
that.
a smirk. Wait a minute. But I see a smirk.
Whereabouts?
On our gentleman to the left, who I always respect his opinion.
Well,
Is that you?
There's 2 gentlemen.
Mr. Sad here. Mr. Sad.
Well, this Michigan State team has dominated the recent series, as Sean mentioned.
You can throw all that out. Just throw all that out.
Well, no, we have a 7-0 against the spread, as well as 4-1 ATS here at Michigan. The thing is, with Connor Cook as quarterback, they're 22-1. He is as a Big Ten starter for Mark D'Antonio. So this Michigan State team hasn't been an underdog with this kind of disrespect for quite a while. They have played very well, beating.
I keep thinking somebody died or something happened.
Well, they beat Oregon early on, and it's been a great road team, too. 16-5-1 against the spread. But, Jeff, here they are, an underdog. How do you see it?
Well, it's not often you see a team at 6-0 straight up and 0-6 against the spread. The one thing you have to remember is that no longer is Pat Narduzzi the defensive coordinator for Michigan State. He's now the head coach at Pittsburgh. That's the biggest difference, I think, from last year. I know they had to cover these big lines. That's one of the reasons, as Sean said, they got backdoor. They were favored by 25 over Air Force, 26 over Central Michigan, 21 over Purdue. It's hard to cover those lines, but still, 0-6 is probably a number everybody's looking at right now as far as line movement. Michigan is they've outscored the last 3 teams 97-0. That's another thing. That's the first time they've had 3 shutouts in a row since 1980. Their only loss was Utah, which looks pretty good now because Utah's turned out to be a pretty good team. Quarterback Jake Rudolph's improving every game, and suddenly the Wolverines have a plethora of running backs. They're led by Devion Smith, who averages 5.1 yards per carry. 3 weeks ago, Michigan State was a 7-point favorite. And now it's pretty much the other way around. Spartans have won 11 straight Big Ten road games. They've won 6 out of the last 7 in this series. The Michigan has not covered the spread against Michigan State since Lloyd Carr was the coach. So, but still, I'm not as confident about Michigan State as Sean is. I think this is a great game to stay away from.
Something is telling you don't mess with this, right?
6.5, I might lean toward Michigan, but once you get over that 7 point, that's almost like a 10-point game, 10-point line, and I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to lay off this game, John.
Well, these defenses are dominant. Notice when they play each other, rivalry game means tough defense. 5-1 under the total when they meet. I'm going to have to side though with Michigan State because of the quarterback situation. Like you, Sean. I am sold on Jim Harbaugh, but not Rudock. He came from Iowa, where he was up and down in his career behind a very good offensive line, but he had plenty of shaky games, including the bowl game against Tennessee. And right now at Michigan, kind of doing it with mirrors with 5 touchdowns and 6 picks. Really, they're doing it with defense. They're doing it with Harbaugh and the ground game. But I still, if they get behind, which they haven't done with 3 straight shutouts, is this kid going to be able to bring them back through passing the football based on what I've seen with him? No, I think it's going to be a major problem. And this is not just any team that they're playing. This is a great Michigan State team. They've been dominant for a while. They've been 1-2 with Ohio State the last couple of years. And I mentioned how their spread record is, Michigan State, on the road, 16-5-1 ATS a while back. Michigan State, wouldn't be surprised to see a low-scoring game here, but I'll take what I think would be a pick-em game. I'll take Michigan State with this kind of points.
Once in a while, I do this kind of thing. It's probably not worth much, but I looked up all the teams that Michigan State played this year, all of them, right, and added their combined point spread records. I'm thinking, well, maybe they're not covering against teams that cover. If you add up all the point spread records for the Michigan State opponents, they're 14-12-1 against a number, which isn't bad. That's about a break even. You might make a few bucks. Michigan, I looked at the point spread records of all their teams. They're 19-15. The opposition, in other words, on the year is 19-15 against a number. So they're not playing these slouch teams that don't cover numbers. So there wasn't really much of an edge there.
And one of the teams they beat, it might be if Michigan wins this game, they got a shot to play for the national title. Maybe we'll see a rematch between Michigan and UNLV in January. You think that's possible?
What's the line on that game?
Yeah, right.
Well,
I tell you, if Michigan wins this game like big, this will be the biggest letdown probably coming the next week or two. How much will they have left in the tank after that?
Exactly. Yeah, this is a marquee game.